as per usual, it's time we start breaking down the top specialists of this year for this draft class, starting with the punters. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but my 2021 predictions had all 7 punters starting in the NFL as of right now, except for Ariza for obvious reasons. And my 2022 predictions had 4 out of 5 punters starting in the NFL this year, with 3 other punters on the list still getting NFL or CFL looks. So without any further ado, let's get into some honorable mentions, and I only have 2 since this class is a little top heavy, but we're gonna give it to Jack Browning. Browning came in to take over Matt Ariza at San Diego State University, which was no small feat. That being said, Jack did an amazing job handling all 3 punting, kicking, and field goals in that time. He was another beacon of consistency, even if he didn't have as much flash as his predecessor, putting up routinely good stats while managing to juggle all 3. And that's just no small feat. He's also one of the few guys in this class that's going to punt and kickoff, which has been an extremely high selling point for NFL teams as of late, and we saw some guys like Trenton Gill sneak into the late 7th from what I presume was his kickoff skill alone. So assuming he shows out at his pro day, he's got a real chance in free agency and some mini caps and potentially even a roster spot, but we'll have to give him that UDFA low priority pick. Next we have Grant Gonya. Grant is a guy right in my backyard who's a bit undersized but has shown us a lot to work with. Formerly a Division III punter, he made his way to UNC Charlotte by posting one of the best D3 averages of all time with some great net to go with it. All that cost him was having to now switch to the worst balls to kick in the great sport of football, the Vapor Elite Thins. Despite that, I think he blew expectations out of the water, setting a single season record for the 49ers. While he does need to work on keeping his ball out of the end zone with 9 touchbacks, his leg power is nothing to be played with, and he also kicks off. So while he's a little raw, being that this is only his 4th year punting, I believe some team will be drawn to how he can absolutely leather a football with his foot and are likely going to bring him in to get some workouts in, and don't sleep on him for earning a spot. But coming in at number 5, we have Vanderbilt's finest, the one, the only Matthew Hayball. Across 5 years of college, he has put up a career average of 45.2 yards. This year was his best by far with a 47.6 yard average, and while you may be thinking, yes, Isaac, but he's an Aussie, and notoriously the translation has been a hair of a struggle from the NCAA to the NFL with Aussies, I'll say this: he is a spiral punter as well as a end over end punter, and he's put some good spiral punts on tape. Now admittedly, I would like to see some more consistency from his torp at the Shrine Bowl, but his constant putting up of good stats, his ability to control the field with his drop punt and Louis, and the fact that he can hit the torp pretty well means I would expect teams interested in bringing him up to compete for a spot with their current guy, potentially all the way to the preseason, like they did with Lou Headley. We'll give him a UDFA rating though, because I think his Shrine Bowl performance didn't do what it needed to push him into draft territory, but depending on how his pro day performance goes, that could definitely change. At the number 4 spot, we have Austin McNamara. AMac was a standout punter from Texas Tech who put up a 45.9 yard punting average across his 5-year career. He's been the beacon of consistency in the punting game, and somebody that if you asked me earlier where he'd be on this list, I probably would have put him higher, especially since he was doing what he did in the windy deserts of Lubbock. While 2021 was his best year of punting, posting a 48.2 yard average, he still was a proficient punter this year, averaging over 46.3 yards a punt. He also did it while posting an absolutely unreal 49% fair catch percentage and hitting 21 punts over 50 yards and pinning opposing teams inside their 20-yard line 24 times. And while AMac hits the spiral clean, even hits the pooch punt well, I think the one area I'd like to see tidied up was his directionality. As it seemed in college, he had a hard time getting the ball outside the hash and numbers on a consistent basis. And that was exemplified even more at the Reese's Bowl, where despite the windy conditions, the ball just really never ended up in the area where it looked like he was trying to put it, and when it did end up over there, it didn't get there how he wanted to, hitting lots of wobbly half-turn spirals. So I'd like to see him show even better control in that game than what he did. That being said, I still think he's good enough that they'll likely overlook this, and he'll probably do well at his pro day, so I could definitely see a team taking him as early as the late 6th, but he's probably going to be a good free agent pickup who will likely win a spot in camp. Coming in at number 3 though, we're going to have Porter Wilson, the Duke standout, who was absolutely brilliant this year. Having the 9th best gross punt stat, he was still able to maintain the 2nd best net punt stat by only allowing a measly 54 punt return yards while also limiting his touchbacks to 5 this season. But he is incredibly directionally sound by NFL standards, with the ball at least ending up outside the hash he's kicking on, and everything from his hands, his steps to fluidity is NFL ready. He even hit this massive 65-yard punt in the air early in the season against Clemson. He honestly was snubbed for a lot of the postseason awards, but he won't be snubbed from my list, as I think he's absolutely absolutely a top tier punter and might be even better at being pro ready than my number 2 guy, but doesn't have nearly enough hype. I think if a team is smart, they go and get this guy, and I don't think you let him fall to free agency, because wherever he ends up, he's going to do numbers for them for a while. So low 6th to 7th round, because I think he's a sleeper, but if he has a great pro day, don't be surprised if a team has to go up to the high 6th round to pick him up. Might even sneak into a late 5 depending on this class. But my number 2 guy might be a surprise to some, but I've got to give it to the legendary Tory Taylor, the Rehkow winner who had a phenomenal year. Top 5 in gross punt, number 1 in net punt, all while having the absolute most punts and punting yards in college football history. So that makes me believe he's rock solid all the way through. Now, while much of his game is held up by his ability to hit the drop punt very cleanly, he also hits a awesome spiral that is woefully underappreciated, and something he's been able to use to flip the field on a consistent basis. Also, have I mentioned that this specimen of a human is 6 foot 4 inches tall and 225 pounds? Yeah, someone's gonna go get this guy in the 5th or 6th round, and my money is on the Steelers since he has a history with cold weather climates, and the black and gold uniforms already match. But really, he could go anywhere that wants to upgrade their punter position, and he likely will do it. But not as well as my number 1 guy, the punter Ryan Rico. Ryan has the 2nd highest gross average in the history of college football, right behind Ryan Stonehouse, by holding a 47.5 yard punting average across 4 years, and he's had to do it all to get there. Some seasons he's had to do it with just a few punts, around 40 across the whole season, and other seasons he's taken on a heavier load with 56. The one constant among all of that is that he's going to demolish the football. He has more than serviceable directional capabilities, he hits balls with good hang times, and has stopped the ball inside the 20 25 times, and has kicked a punt over 60 yards in 7 of his games this season. He has a career long of 83 yards, as well as having done nothing more than prove year in and year out that he is a pro level punter with clean hands, short, quick steps, and a fluid swing path that's going to give him consistent direction and hang time and reduce miss hits. And if your team is considering getting a punter, I have no doubts in my mind he will be the first guy off the board. And after the success of Stonehouse, I can see teams going as high as the 4th to get him with how top heavy this class is, but realistically, he's probably going to end up in a 5th or 6th round guy. So that's my top 5. Let me know who you think your team is going to go after this year, and peace.